tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina Speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You hear some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good evening, everyone. Hello, near and far. How are you? It's good to be back. I'm Sabrina, and welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. Yes, it's good to be back with you on this Tuesday. Now, the content you're about to hear, including any discussions, or opinions from myself, guests, and our participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255 is the number to call and be a part of the discussion. We always love your participation, and this evening is no different than any other evening because you are the foundation and you are the ones to keep this space going. Don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a family member. We're live. Here we go. This and for more entertainment on cmrtv.com. We are brought to you every Monday to Friday from 5 until 7 p.m. Yes, and today is no different. You know, we started off this year that we were going to use the bedrock of this platform in saying 2026, the year of civic power, building accountability together. So even though we have that different episode titled, I want you to have that etched in your brain, in your mind. Come as a sponge. Be curious. Be hungry for knowledge, and what you don't understand, just ask. We will do our best to research. We will do our best to engage in the conversation. So we answer those questions and address those concerns that may be bothering you as best as possible. Because yes, 2026, the year of civic power, building accountability together, is the bedrock of how we're going to embark on this new year. It's good to be back, as I tell you, and we know we got to get it started because it's not as wet as yesterday evening. Oh my God, I loved it the past 48 hours. I'm so thankful for the change in weather here, even though some of our people up north they're still at the edge of their seats with it being so cold. And definitely in Florida. Can you imagine on Pensacola Beach, you're building a snowman? Oh my gosh. Yeah, but that's what certain parts of the panhandle states of Florida was feeling over the weekend. And I think they're getting another Arctic blast in the coming days. But what's going on right here? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. The synopsis for the Cayman area is saying that drier conditions are anticipated over the Cayman area as the share line extends from a stationary front shifts elevated moisture west of our area. And this associated high pressure will continue to support fresh to strong northerly winds and rough seas across the Cayman area through tomorrow as the pressure gradient increases. Now, satellite imageries show scattered clouds across the Cayman area and scattered layered clouds across the Yucatan. The forecast for tonight calls for partly cloudy skies with a 40% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall to the mid 70s. Wind will be northeast at 15 to 20 knots with higher gusts, and seas will be rough with wave heights of 6 to 8 feet. Mainly along the northern and eastern coast, a small craft alert will be in effect. The forecast for tomorrow calls for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers. Temperatures will rise near the low to mid 80s, and winds will be northeast to 15 to 20 knots with higher gusts. Now, seas will be rough with wave heights of 6 to 8 feet, mainly along the northern and eastern coast, and definitely small craft alert is in effect until the afternoon. Now, there will be a high tide this evening at 10:35, and tomorrow there'll be a low tide at 4:30. Another high is expected at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The sun will set this evening at 6:10, and Jimbo, just giving you a day's notice, it'll set tomorrow at 6:10 as well. Sun will rise tomorrow at 7:02 in the morning, and the outlook calls for a decrease in winds from Thursday, as well as the return of moderate sea conditions, which would gradually become slight, and the high pressure erodes. Fair to partly cloudy skies will dominate with a low chance of showers. Yes, we are happy to get this forecast. We need to dry out a little bit because we know what's up next, right? Mosquitoes, mosquitoes and frogs. That's what's next. That's what we got to be bracing for. But yeah, I was welcoming of the change in temperatures. To be honest, I love it. I got myself in trouble in the kitchen. We won't want to relive that over again. But yeah, I really did enjoy the weather. And even though we had a lot of motor vehicle accidents, let's hope that as the standing water in some areas remain, that people will still exercise caution no matter what, whether we're having rains or not. You just act responsibly on the roads. But it's good to be back with you here on this fabulous Tuesday, and you are more than happy to join in on the conversation, because from codes to crisis, strengthening Cayman's civic compass, we're going to pretty much be focusing. Remember, yesterday we embarked on a conversation in regards to this code of conduct for people in the legal fraternity, attorneys. But did you realize, leave this, take a bite at this piece. Did you all realize that that was really only for those in the private sector? Did you realize that? And that is why we welcome your feedback on this. And we are also going to go into the advertisement that is now in the public domain. If all of you who aspire to be the deputy governor of the Cayman Islands, the DG's position, if you didn't know, is up on their government website being advertised. Yeah. Did you realize that? Do you meet the criteria? We'll go down that road and explore that as well, because you may be surprised that there's a high percentage of persons who could possibly do a good job is totally eliminated from that based on the requirement. If you didn't know, now you know. That's why you want to keep it locked to the Sabrina Speaks show this evening for that and more. And I invite you to join in on the conversation. But it eliminates a lot of people from applying, a high percentage. You be the judge of that, but your feedback is welcome. Yes, we're going to get straight into the crooks and crannies of things, but not before saying general birthday shout outs to everyone today who's celebrating a birthday and anniversary, and just who are just celebrating life. And I just want to extend from all of us here on the Sabrina Speaks family. I have been behind a couple of days, so please forgive me if you're overlooked. It is not intentional. It has just been a lot going on behind the scenes as I prepare each day to come here live for you. But I'm going to get back on track with these birthday shout outs. And just a gentle reminder, I shared it here with you. This is unsolicited for the record. Let me help these people here. Let me just put this up as a gentle reminder. And again, I'm just doing my civic duty. That's what it is here, right? Gentle reminder that the Labor Act training of 2026 schedule is out, and their first one for the training is going to be Thursday the 22nd. Yes, that is going to be held from 9 until 1 p.m. this Thursday, the 22nd of January, at the Intergenerational Hub, and that's off McClendon Drive in Georgetown. That is across from the airport post office. So if you want to know about the Labor Act, there is an application form. You can actually email the DLP at gov.ky. Feel free to give them a call, 945-8960, for this training session that will actually entail learning more about the Act in itself of 2021. That's the Labor Act 2021 revision, including roles, responsibilities, entitlement, and proper procedures. So any of you who, or anyone who wants to know more about this training is taking place this Thursday, as I said, from 9 until 1 p.m. And for more information, feel free to give them a call, 945-8960. There is a registration form that you need to fill out. I'll probably post that for you on my site, but I'm just sharing it here with you. So in case you didn't know, now you know. I'll post it up again, maybe at the end if time permits, and we don't get too bogged down into our conversation, so that we can actually share it with you. To the best of my knowledge, yeah, Real Michelle, it's free. Yeah. So good to be here with you. Let's see who's commenting. Shaka Zulu. Good evening to you. Miss Joyce, good to have you here as well. Harry, hello, how are you? You've been quiet for the past episode. Yeah, good evening, Annie. Damian Henry's in the house. Yeah. Evelyn, Cayman Islands is expensive. Yes, our cost of living is very high. Yep. Darlene Mackenzie's good to have you here as well. And Marshall, good. Yes, Aliano, how are you, my love? Cool cat. Where are you at? We're in the Cayman Islands. Yep, beautiful Cayman Islands. No place like it. Connie Bonnie, it's good. Yes, we are a kinder, gentler world. Yes, Aliano, see Miss Sabrina, beat me to my weather report. There you go. Aliano, you'd be surprised how much people actually appreciate it. And I was like, I just did it off the whim one day. And now I'm doing it at the beginning of each show. And I've been told by a number of people, we like when you say it. We like when you do it. So it's become a regular here. Yeah, there we go. Real Michelle, good to have you in the house. We got an early caller here. It's so good to have our callers calling in, just so we can get straight into it this evening, because we know we were continuing the conversation that here in the Cayman Islands, just in case you missed it. For the first time in the Cayman Islands history, attorneys face a mandatory code of conduct, and what this means for justice, for Caymanians, and for trust in our institution. And, at the end of the day, the Legal Service Act fully commenced on the 1st of January 26, that just as for a little context for those of you who have missed it, modernizing oversight of attorneys. And what we have seen is that a mandatory code of conduct sets ethical standards, independence, conflict of interest rules. We also have sanctions for misconduct. Now, in a global context, the Cayman's legal profession has grown to some 1,200 attorneys, and many tied to complex financial activities. But there is some tension afoot, because overseas lawyers with limited admission may not be subjected to the same code. And we're also seeing that this standard code of practice does not include those who are working in the government. So rather interesting, but there are rumblings happening, and I'm quite sure to continue on with the discussion yesterday, I'm more than happy to welcome back to the show today, Mr. Balika, who will be weighing in more on this. And you remember when I started, I said, think about that. What's your thoughts that this code of conduct in itself does not include the government, and it's pretty much focused on all of the attorneys practicing in the civil service? Good evening, caller. You're live. What's on your mind? Harry, I'm good.
Good evening, Sabrina, and good evening to your esteemed listeners.
Yes.
Well, it looks like today you might need 3 hours, but you don't have 3 hours.
No, we
you
don't.
only have 2 hours.
Hence, I've just come out of the barn like a raging, because it's two very heavy topics. Because I just managed to stumble on was having a conversation earlier on. Just managed to stumble on the job description and the advertisement for the deputy governor. And that was interesting. But I knew we wanted to continue on this conversation because it just made the news yesterday on this code of conduct. But then there's rumblings out there that, this really doesn't stand to cover the civil servant side.
Well, a couple of things. One, I'm interested, of course, in the deputy governor. Well, not interested in applying for it.
Well, I don't think you would be entitled to or even able to.
I would be disqualified on so many grounds,
For you. Don't even waste paper. Don't even waste time at the computer.
No, I will do what I usually do, which is to rubber-rouse about it a little bit, I haven't seen, well, I in one of my Cayman groups, I saw somebody sent it and they were just saying, hey, do you qualify for this? Now,
we have a lot of qualifies. But if you, in layman's terms, didn't have a long-term career in public service with at least 10 years in top leadership role, pretty much a deep knowledge of how government works, includes the executive branch, legislative branch, you pretty much don't stand a chance. So in layman's terms, from what I see, just a quick synopsis is that if you are not a chief officer or somebody like that, or even somebody working in a statutory authority, you don't stand a chance, which eliminates, let's say, you heard a number of a number of platforms, people were saying Mr. Marco Archer would be a good candidate. Eliminates him. Nope, he wouldn't be able to apply. No.
Yeah, you see, this is the problem with the posts like that. You want somebody who is familiar with the civil service, but it's like how narrow do you want it to be? Because you can narrow it down to a point, as you say, where unless really you've been a chief officer, and not just chief officer, but 10 years. Not all chief officers have been in top management for 10 years,
right?
Unless maybe you were a deputy chief officer, and then they consider deputy chief officer to be top management. Yes.
Well, I got some
from
screenshots.
What you're saying,
I got some screenshots, very good, because I'm just doing this bit by bit, and I'm hoping, let me take this off here. This is a deputy, just to prove that it is legitimately from their website. And what I have on the scheme here, as the head of the civil service, you may play a pivotal role. Let me just go here. You may play a pivotal role in ensuring good governance, the effective delivery of public service, public sector reforms, strategy, and strategic initiatives. And then the key accountabilities responsible to the cabinet and the parliament for all activities of the portfolio of civil service, provide advice to the governor and cabinet on policy implementation, act as governor when required to do so, oversight of all operational matters of the civil service, responsible for nationality, naturalization, and official document matters, sit as an ex officio member on both cabinet and parliament, chair and coordinate meetings of various committees and councils, perform ceremonial duties, and speak at wide variety of events, represent the Cayman Islands locally and globally. But hold on a second here. Here's another part, because it was so big. The key, then you have the requirement. There is a constitutional requirement. 1, the deputy governor must be a Caymanian as stipulated under the Constitution. The deputy governor must hold or have held a senior position in the public service and be eligible to hold public office. Education, the post holder should be educated to first degree level or equivalent. A master's degree in public administration, business administration, or similar field, or a degree in law would be highly desirable. Now, experience says a significant number of years experience as a public servant, including at least 10 years in a senior public service position. Example, head of department or head of a statutory authority or government-owned company. a public servant who has, through knowledge and experience working with the executive and legislative arms of government, board experience in an in-depth working knowledge of the government's organizational structures and functions, including budget and financial control and personnel management procedures. Experience of leading a public sector change management process is highly desirable. Proven track record of successful management and leadership skills are further prerequisites. Experience in one or more technical areas for which the post holder is responsible is highly desirable. Skills, excellent research, critical thinking, analytical, and writing skills are necessary. In addition, the post holder must be confident, creative to be able to display initiative and think outside the box. A proactive and innovative approach to public service delivery is essential. A people person with a track record of leading large teams is essential. The candidate must have a high-level interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, and the ability to lead, empathize, inspire, and relate to people at all levels within both government and the community as a whole is necessary. The post holder must also possess a high degree of professionalism, integrity, and acute political sensitivity and awareness. The post holder must be able to remain politically neutral in his/her work while carrying out the responsibilities of the position, serving the government of the day in a way that ensures he/she maintains confidence and trust. What say you?
Well,
there's a reason I
let
read
me
it all.
begin.
I'm sorry, I had to read it all.
No, I'm grateful that you read it all because I hadn't read it. So now I can at least comment reasonably on it, because otherwise I was going to discuss the other issue and come back on it. But let's talk about this one because this is really important as well. Now, let me begin on, I suppose this could be a joke in a sense, You remember the time when Donny Ebanks, may his soul rest in peace, was deputy governor. And they started looking for a new deputy governor. And I was having this chat with a Caymanian friend of mine, a very naughty Caymanian friend of mine. And after the appointment came out, before the appointment came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, are you going to apply for the position? And she said to me, no, I'm not going to apply for the position. What are you talking about? That position is already earmarked for France. So I said, no, but it's not earmarked for France. Donny says there will be an open recruitment process. Well, eventually France got the job.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying to myself now, are we going through the same cycle? Is it already earmarked for somebody and we are going through this? That's not to say France was not a deserving deputy governor. Certainly he was. But I just found that a little bit of a discussion behind the scenes, which was very, very interesting as to whether or not somebody's earmarked. Now, there are some people, I won't throw out a name, but there are some people who think that there's already somebody who is earmarked. But, I mean, the public service management law sets out an interview process. The advertisement has been worked out as a result of the procedures provided under that law. And it has now gone out there. And there will be an interview. There will be an interviewing panel. And the recommendation will come out of it. But I agree. It has been crafted in a way which probably might disqualify and the range of people such as Marco Archer. And Marco is being mentioned because a lot of people did mention that he could be a suitable deputy governor, good reputation, great background, former minister of finance, and one of the best ministers of finance. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But the other interesting part of this is that it says it must be a Caymanian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, technically, that means that you can appoint a status holder as well, okay? Because Caymanian in Cayman law includes a status holder.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that in the last few months,
not generational. It did not stipulate.
It did not
It
stipulate.
just
And
used
if
the
it
word
doesn't-
Caymanian as Caymanian.
Yeah. And what is Caymanian under the
And it
immigration
won't
law?
define under the immigration law. So you could be a status holder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you could be a status holder. Now, why I mentioned that is because in the last few months, a few people who've been calling to the shows, they've been saying, well, we want somebody who is a Caymanian as of right, and not a status holder. Now, I think those people are entitled to say that, but I think as a matter of law, it can be a status holder.
Mhm.
Okay? It
Mhm.
can be a status holder. It can
According
be a status
according to
holder,
this,
so-
according to that requirement.
Exactly. So now, can you amend the law in future to say that it has to be a person who is a Caymanian as of right? I don't know. There may be some issues there about discrimination.
Yeah.
There may be some issues about discrimination. But again, if you put it in the Constitution, because this is in the Constitution itself, that it should be a person who is a Caymanian as of right. Even if you put it in the Constitution, there could be some challenges based on the European Convention on Human Rights as to whether it is a kind of discrimination which is allowed.
Mhm.
But I mean, I guess that this won't be such a huge issue this time, because it doesn't seem to me that there are any significant names that are mentioned who are status holders who might want to apply for it. I'm quite sure some of them will apply for it. But I think ultimately the interview panel, I think, would do well, in my view, to give greater weight to Caymanian as of right, because I find that, you see, the deputy governor's position is very much also a public relations job. And I think one of those descriptions sort of like covers that directly or indirectly. You are a person who tomorrow you are doing a 5-10 kilometer walk. You are among the people, okay?
Mhm.
People come to you for certain things which they are asking you to solve, and knowledge of not just of Cayman, like as much as I have, but
Mhm.
the knowledge of Cayman at an intimate, cultural, ethnic level, I think is very important. So personally, I would say that the panel would do well to find somebody who's a Caymanian as of right, because I think people can gravitate around such a person if you choose the right person. Much better than anybody else. But we'll see how it works out. By the way, one of the things that is mentioned again in the job description is to do a lot of ceremonial things.
Yeah, perform
One of the
ceremonial
ceremonial things-
duties and speak at a wide variety of events.
Yeah, one of the ceremonial things that I wasn't fully aware until I went through it myself is how almost every week the deputy governor is giving people naturalization and status, or at least, going through that ceremony. They usually have it, I think, in the on the ground floor of the conference room in the GAP. And he gives out something like 15 to 17 statuses every week, and that's one of the things which I find very interesting. But I mean, look, let's see what the panel is going to come out with.
Caller, in regards to that, I do have MP Brian, Georgetown Central, member of Parliament, that says that he will be bringing a motion to amend the definition of Caymanian as the same requirements as to run for political office.
Okay, well, he wants to bring an amendment to...
So he wants to make a motion to amend the definition of Caymanian in the immigration law to reflect that, to run the same definition then that defines one to run or for political office. He wants it to be aligned, one and same. The definition.
Okay, yeah, because, that would be a significant change, because in the Constitution, a status holder can't run for office, but a child of a status
for
holder
the hiring
can
of the
run for
DG
office.
in this case, for the hiring of the DG in this case.
Oh, you mean he wants this to apply to the hiring of the DG in this particular case?
The definition for Caymanian should be one and same as the definition to run for to hold political office.
Okay, yeah. So if that it were to be adopted before this appointment is made, then it would mean that a Caymanian as of right, of course, would qualify to be appointed deputy governor, but a status holder wouldn't qualify unless they are a son of another status holder.
There we go. Whatever the definition is in the political act is one and same for any future, or I don't know if it's going to make the time of this advertisement, but the position of the DG, the member from Georgetown Central, is going to move a motion or to bring a motion to amend the definition that Caymanian, for the context of applying for the position of deputy governor, that requirements is the same as to run for political office, that definition is one and same.
Yeah. Now I understand what he's trying to do in the sense of that it should not just be a status holder, but it's a child of a status holder. But I'll tell you what two things. One, you've already mentioned, Sabrina, which is, can this be done in time?
We don't know
for it to
what it requires. Would it then be a re-advertisement if it's taken in consideration, or would it be for future advertisements of the deputy governor? Because I mean, I will try to go back to the careers to see exactly when this position closed and whether or not this motion that is being proposed would have any bearing on that motion, let's see. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, because one, it has already been advertised.
Yeah, it's already in circulation.
People are already interpreting
the close date
in accordance with the existing law.
Yeah, the close date is the 31st of January.
31st of January.
No,
okay,
1st of February. 1st of February, sorry.
1st of February. Okay. So that it would mean that, there are probably some people who are just status holders who have already applied for the position on the basis that it says Caymanian
as currently defined,
status holder. And so if you amended it,
let's say that the government at the day accepts the motion, it may or may not have no bearing on this round of recruitment for deputy governor. It may or may not.
It may not. Part of the reason is you have to then back it up with legislation, because the Constitution is legislation. That's where that requirement of Caymanian is specified, and according to the existing law in the Cayman in the immigration law, Caymanian includes a status holder. So if you want this to apply to a current advertisement, I think it'll be very difficult, because I don't think there'll be enough time to amend it.
I think it's something that's trying to be done so that at the end of the day, it's carte blanche what the Caymanian people want. So again, and I quote, you can attribute those, sorry, I sound like Trump now. What the Georgetown Central is saying, it needs to be resolved once and for all. And in his opinion, he also feels that the current governor would not hire a status holder as the DG. It would create public unrest, in his opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, look, there are a lot of people in Cayman, status holders who are good and have really blended themselves into the community. But I still feel that at the end of the day, what you want in there is somebody who is a Caymanian is of right. You know, somebody who can relate to people at that level. I know sometimes it sounds like it's not fair, but I think in a small community, especially with the sensitivity that is currently going around there about the Caymanians are a minority in their own country, and if the head of the civil service becomes a status holder, I think that it will go down very poorly in the public.
It would almost take on the characteristics like what you've alluded to a number of times, that how much Caymanians are there a part of legal drafting that are core Caymanians. I think you've made mention of that a number of times. And this is why someone who's culturally embedded into who we are, the true sentiments from the core, the fiber of Caymanian, they're the ones that are absent, but yet there are others who are writing the law. You can't have the same feeling being expressed in legislation if you're coming with a different background.
Yeah, look, these are things which I mentioned some time back about how in Canada you can't draft legislation unless you are a Canadian citizen. In fact, most of the people who draft legislation are born Canadians. Now that is not specifically in the requirements, but that's the way they tend to be. Look, I hope that the person appointed is a Caymanian as of right. I think that will avoid that restlessness which might occur in the community. And remember also that depending on how old this person is, they could be there for 15 or 20 years.
What a mess.
Okay.
Well, that would bring up
Yeah,
another question as to whether or not there should be, for certain positions within the civil service, should be like a rollover or a term limit then of how long one can be in that position. It's rather interesting, because
you know what, you've opened the can of worms. You opened the can of worms.
It's just thought-provoking.
And I think you're right. Yeah, it's thought-provoking because way back, I won't mention the name, in a very well-known Caymanian. I'll mention him because I know it was him. Dr. Frank, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Frank, way back, said that why don't we have term limits for jobs such as Attorney General and Solicitor General? Okay. He specifically asked for that. Now, as you know, in a lot of governments, once a government is elected out of office, a new government comes in, usually they come with a new Attorney General. But in the Cayman Islands, it hasn't been like that. Okay. And one of the problems of having an AG who is always there regardless of government, you become compromised. Now, I don't want to say anything specific about the current AG. Let me just discuss the concept. In the US, for example, the director of the FBI is appointed for one term, 10 years, non-renewable. And the reason for that is to create a balance between somebody being in the office long enough to do the job, but at the same time ensuring that they are not looking for a contract to be renewed. Because if you say, well, their contract is going to have to be renewed by somebody, then they are always thinking, well, if I make this decision, will it affect my chances of renewal or not? And that's why they decided in the US, you are here for 10 years and you do your job. And they felt that if somebody doesn't have to beg anybody for renewal of their term, and if they know they are going to be there for 10 years, they are more likely to be independent. It's like presidents, right? Presidents in the first term, they are a little bit careful what they do because they are seeking election for a second term. But when they are in the second term, when they know they are not going to seek election again, then they make certain decisions which are good for the public. And even in Cayman, we sort of adopted a system similar to that. The ombudsman is appointed for 7 years. The ombudsman, the Cayman ombudsman, is appointed for 7 years, and they are not supposed to be eligible for renewal. Okay, and that makes them very, very independent. And I think the current ombudsman has been very, very independent. That's why I think they're trying to get rid of her. But that's a discussion for another job. Okay, and that little discussion, by the way, is connected to the issue relating to this new code of conduct.
Right.
If we can, sort of segue into that.
Yeah, please, by all means.
You see, it's very good. It's very good that this is being done now, that legal practitioners now will be subjected to a detailed piece of legislation, that defines who has the power to discipline them, what their duties are, what punishments can be imposed, and so forth. That's good. But I think like anything which is brought into force, we must say, why did it take so long? When I first came to Cayman, when I first came to Cayman 2003, I was shocked to find that the way in which legal practitioners got licensed, they went to the Chief Justice and they got a practicing license from there. There was no proper structure for disciplining lawyers. I was shocked because I came from a jurisdiction where, I was called to the bar in 1977 in the jurisdiction I came from. And even decades before that,
Mm-hmm.
they had a proper structure which registered lawyers. There was a disciplinary committee. There was a legal practitioners committee. You could appeal from the legal practitioners committee to the disciplinary committee, and even go for judicial review in the High Court. So I was very shocked to find that actually the practice of law in the Cayman Islands was not very well regulated.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some time back, I made an FOI to the Chief Justice to say, can you tell me how many judges and lawyers have been disciplined? It turned out actually they were not even keeping proper records of these matters.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask them, for example, what was the final ruling in such and such a case, they didn't have like a proper ruling. What is supposed to happen is that if you are complained against, there's supposed to be an inquiry, and there's supposed to be a written ruling, a judgment which says we went through it and this is what happened. That was never happening. So anyway, I just think that as advanced as Cayman is, people must remember that there are always certain pockets of deficiencies here and there, where it takes a long time before government acts. And usually it is because there's somebody in the private sector who doesn't want to be regulated. Now, so that's the first point I want to make about that. But about the current law, the biggest deficiency that I see, there are a number of deficiencies. By the way, I commented in great detail on this legal practitioners bill when it was first published. I even sent my comments to the Attorney General. One of the comments I made, which they didn't deal with, is that the disciplinary tribunal, this is the tribunal to which the complaints will go. You are a member of the public, you say the lawyer has stolen my money, where do you go? You go to the disciplinary tribunal.
Right.
You know, all the members of the disciplinary tribunal are lawyers. One of them is a judge, and the judge will be the chairperson. So here you are a guy from Georgetown, East End, West Bay, and you are a taxi driver. You think that a lawyer has not handled your case properly, and then you go before this bunch of lawyers to complain against a lawyer. What chances do you have that they will find him guilty of misconduct? The chairman is the judge. All the other members are lawyers, and they are lawyers with, they say here, I'm looking at it right now, they are lawyers with 7 years experience. Okay, so the disciplinary tribunal consists of the following members appointed by the council: a retired judge who shall be chairperson of the disciplinary tribunal, and B, subject to subsection G, a panel of 7 members appointed on an annual basis who shall be attorneys at law of at least 10 years standing. So there's no member of the public. And you go there, you don't have a chance in hell. It will only be in the extreme cases where the tribunal has got no option that they will ever discipline the person. So to me, that's the biggest problem. Now, this kind of problem exists also in the UK, and it has been a problem. You know, in the UK, one time, because they got fed up with lawyers always being found not guilty, they had a system where the solicitors body in the UK had they appointed an ombudsman who, according to law, was not supposed to be a lawyer, was not supposed to be a former lawyer. It had to be just somebody, an administrator, but somebody of some standing. And the reason they did that at the time was because they said, look, you can't get lawyers to supervise themselves. They will always be supporting themselves. Now, I believe that system has also changed even further, but I'm just trying to illustrate that this is a problem that has to be dealt with. Now, the modern thinking to which I adhere to is that such bodies must have half lawyers, half members of the public. Why do we have, for example, a jury which decides, they say you should have your case determined by a jury of your peers? Yes, the judge is there to guide them on the law, but they decide issues of fact. Now, I do have my own criticisms about the jury system, but that's a discussion for another time. But
Right.
the concept is kind of good. I would just have loved it if jurors could give reasons, and there could be a possibility of appealing an acquittal, even if it's not on the basis of law, and so on and so forth. There are those little criticisms I have. But all I'm trying to say is that why can't you have people who go before a tribunal like this to complain? Why can't they have half members of the public and then half the lawyers? Because that way it is better balanced. It is something that I think we can think about, because it will be much better and much more fairer for people to be appointed that way. Now, let me show you. The other thing I want to make is this: you should not expect too much about this legislation, not only because of what I've said, but because of some practical problems. And let me, in this regard, refer to the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. You know that we've had a judicial code of conduct from about 2012 or so. The Constitution came into effect 2009. And then 2012, a judicial code of conduct was promulgated by the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. And so judges have been under this code for some time. But has any single judge been disciplined since 2012 up to now, despite the code? Not one that I'm aware of. They've had a code for judges, not one. Now, what are some of the problems? Some of the problems is the very thing I've mentioned about the composition of the body which disciplines, because judges are supposed to be disciplined. Okay, it's a little bit complicated. Initially, if you wanted to complain against a judge of the Grand Court or a judge of the Court of Appeal, you went to the Judicial Commission. Okay, but in 2016 they changed that, and they said if you want to complain against a judge of the Grand Court, you go to the Chief Justice. If you want to complain, if you want to complain against a judge of the Court of Appeal, you go to the President of the Court of Appeal. Sabrina, what are the chances that if I complain against a judge today and I go to the Chief Justice and say the judge there is a liar, you think that the Chief Justice is going to lightly find him guilty? No.
There's a possibility in a small island like ours, you'd be blacklisted. Your life would probably be made a living hell. Your career is probably done.
I know one person who's been blacklisted and his life has been a bit of a living hell, but we won't mention who that person is. You see, that's the problem. So initially, you had to go to the commission. I liked that purely from the perspective that it was a body of people, subject to the criticism I'll make in a moment. But now they weakened it even further in 2016 by amending the Constitution and say you go to the Chief Justice. Now, I can tell you it doesn't work, because I've complained against one Court of Appeal judge and nothing happened. I complained against a judge who I proved, the one I was talking about yesterday, I proved with 13 emails that this judge lied and denied me a hearing. 13 emails. That judge has never been disciplined to this date because the Chief Justice said there's nothing here. Okay? So there is that problem. But then, in an extreme case, a matter can go to the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, and then the commission can recommend dismissal of the judge. But who are the members of the Judicial and Legal Service Commission? It's got 8 members. Out of 8 members, no, it's not 8 members. Yeah, it has got 8 members. Only 2 of them are non-lawyers. The rest are, So the full members are, there's a Mr. Nick Freeland, who is an accountant, distinguished accountant. Sean Parchment, distinguished accountant. Then the president of the Court of Appeal, Justice Goldring. Justice Ramsey Hale, the Chief Justice. Then the president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Justice Adrian Saunders. The president of the Eastern Caribbean Court, Supreme Court, Madam Justice Pereira. Then there's Ms. Myrtle Brand, who is a retired legislative counsel. And then there is a Colette Wilkins, who is also a lawyer. So of these, only the 2 accountants are non-lawyers. Again, what do you expect? You expect these lawyers, some of whom even appear before these judges, that they are going to find a judge guilty? No. Again, what do you want? You want a balance. You want one half to be non-lawyers. You want the other half to be lawyers. And you want also not just people who are like these top-notch accountants.
Right.
Pick a guy, for example, who maybe runs a small transport business, but is a respectable member of the community. Put him there. Have different people in the community who might not be operating at that level, but are respectable people of the community. You put them there because that will ensure that that body is well balanced
and represented. A certain sector of society is represented. And I think that's where people are feeling my voice doesn't matter. How I see things, even where representation is concerned, they may not articulate the best. They know what they want to say, but it doesn't come across. And then that leaves for one listening or trying to represent, possibly, being able to say, intellectual capacity may not be there. It's sad that we're having this level of conversation, but it is the truth, because that is a window into possibly describing the type of potential client you have or individual you're dealing with.
Yeah.
How you articulate yourself.
I listen to Cayman radio a lot and of course participate in the calls. And there are some people who are very articulate in what they put forward. There are some others who are not articulate, but I can tell this guy is intelligent.
Correct.
This guy has got perception, has got experience, and so on.
From a different angle that makes it make sense.
And I learn a lot, to a point where sometimes somebody would mention something like that to me, like something to me. And then they say, oh, but Mr. Billy, what do you think about this little thought? And then I say, what? This thought you have come across and so on. Do you know there are people who have become professors by, articulating ideas like this? And then I tell him just how that idea is such a great idea. There are other people who think like that, or that is got a perspective I've never encountered before. And so you want to tap into every member of the community, and you want to make sure that the community feels that the legal institutions are not far from the people. That
you're down to earth. Close. You can see the man on the street. You can be able to relate with the common everyday person, and it's not just a certain echelon of the society. That it's well balanced, and everyone is represented based on the composition.
Yeah. Let me show you the worst example that I have seen of a perfectly legitimate case not succeeding because the members of a particular body are biased. In my very same case, right? When I went before a judge, the judge agreed, I will give you 2 days in which you can argue this matter. I told the judge, okay, this was like in January 2019. I told him, I said, Judge, in May, I will not be able to travel to Cayman. So I should be grateful for a hearing, a Zoom hearing. He said, okay, fine. Let's ask the people on the other side, the lawyer on the other side, whether the client will agree to that. And the lawyer was asked to check with the client, and they were checking with the client. Then I followed it up in March with an email formally putting the request, because normally it's not supposed to be a problem, with a remote hearing, So I put the request in writing in March. The judge's office responded and said, well, we have received this request. We are now asking formally the other side to say whether there is any objection and so on. And the emails accumulated to about 13, and the number of people who either sent an email, received an email, or received a copy of the email was about 8 altogether. So these emails went to the listing officer, to the special assistant, to the judge. They went to all kinds of people. But you know what happened? When the date of hearing came, the judge said he denied me the hearing and then said, well, you asked for it here too late.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he wrote in his judgment. In his judgment, he said, well, I denied him the original two-day hearing because he asked for the hearing too late.
Oh, wow.
Now, when he said I asked for it shortly before the hearing, how can you say it was shortly before the hearing? Because I sent an email to him and we had all these 13 emails going back for 2 months. How can you say that? He clearly was lying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he was lying. That is one. Two, he wrote in his judgment, he said, there's some legal point I raised. And then he said, well, Mr. Simamba raised this point, but he did not make any detailed arguments. He just made some general statements. Now, again, that was a lie because I cited 53 cases in a submission going into 44 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So again, he was lying, you see. So what I did was I sued the judge, but we'll talk another time about whether you can sue a judge. You can actually sue a judge in the Cayman Islands. After I sued the judge, the matter appeared. It went before 10 judges successively. It went before 2 or 3 judges of the Grand Court. It went before 3 judges of the Court of Appeal. It went before 3 judges of the Privy Council. And all of them said that I had no arguable point of law. And yet I had 13 emails showing that the judge had lied. Okay? What is the reason?
Mm-hmm.
The reason is because after it went through all these judges, they knew that, you see, the complaint mechanisms are weak. I took the matter to the exactly. Then I took the matter to the Judicial Commission, and I said, Judicial Commission, this has gone through all the appeal processes, and they keep saying that there's no arguable point of law. But I've got 13 emails here which show in hard evidence that the judge was lying. You know what happened? Even the Judicial Commission says there's nothing here. But you know what's very significant, even more significant about that, is that none of the 10 judges and none of the members of the commission, those 8 who are mentioned here,
mm-hmm.
in their written rulings, not one of them quoted a single one of my emails, which were the central part of my case. Okay? Why is that? It is because they also are not accountable to anybody. And as if that's not enough, then they went to court. They said that the court should issue an order, what is called a vexatious litigator order, which means that they can say, oh, because Mr. Simamba, you brought this case and taken it back and forth, it is a frivolous case, and therefore we are going to prevent you now from bringing any case to the Grand Court without a special leave from the judge for 2 years. There was no reason to issue that order. They applied for it, they got the order, and I was prevented from bringing that case for 2 years. The 2 years ended, unfortunately, and I brought the case again. And now, at the end of 2 years, I have now applied to the Grand Court to judicially review the decision of the Commission. Okay, and then when it went to the Grand Court said, okay, I'll allocate a judge, but I said I don't want a judge from Cayman because all of you don't like me. So they brought a judge from from Barbados. He too made a decision which I totally disagreed with, and I'm now back. My case is pending a hearing in the Court of Appeal. Up to this day, nobody has quoted the emails which were proving my case. Why am I giving you this story? I'm giving you this story because even if you have a structure, unless the members of those bodies are properly accountable and that members of the public are also participating in that, it is a cabal which will refuse to decide in your favor regardless of how strong your case is. So that's why this thing about the Legal Practitioners Bill coming into force, yes, it is a good thing. Yeah, it is mandatory now, and it is good. But we must remember that until those structures are made strong, even if you have a very, very good case, it is very, very hard for you to get lawyers to be disciplined.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
But
So
I
the
thought,
next frontier.
I thought, sir, to be honest, you said
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
judges can't be sued in the Cayman Islands. I thought they were protected by judicial immunity, especially if they're acting
Okay.
in their profession, because of the fact that here in the Cayman Islands, we actually follow the English common law and they're protected by that. But you said that you can actually sue. How did you come to that? A judge.
Exactly. I'll just
Just for
get you
clarity, I need
section
to.
right.
Okay.
No. That's very, very important, Sabrina, because
Because
is
of
another
judicial
complaint
immunity. I thought they were protected just because of that, and how our legislature is structured here in the Cayman Islands, that they're protected.
Yeah, you're right. The classic British position is that you cannot sue a judge for anything that they do in the performance of the functions of their office.
Of their duty.
Of their duties, yeah. And in the UK, they, last time I checked, they just have that in case law. Okay, they do not have a statute which gives immunity. But let me give you an example of how in other parts of the world you can sue a judge. I read a case from New Zealand some time back. A guy sued a judge. The judge claimed immunity, cited case law, but it turned out that in New Zealand, there was immunity for judges of the High Court, but not judges of the lower courts. And this judge was a judge of the lower court. And so the court said, your suit can proceed in the sense that there is no immunity which applies to judges of lower courts. But on the facts of the particular case, I do not think that the judge did anything wrong. So in a nutshell, they were saying, yes, you could sue this particular class of judge, but you just haven't made out your case. But then they noticed that lacuna in the law. Then they amended the law to include immunity for those judges.
Okay. So it's judicial review then, as Real Michelle is saying, then you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then also in Saskatchewan, there was a case again. Somebody sued a judge. It turned out that the judges did not enjoy absolute immunity. They enjoyed qualified immunity. The court said yes, it's all right to sue, but you haven't made out your case. Okay. But now let me now come to Cayman. Specifically, the provision relating to Cayman, Section 29 of the Grand Code Act. This is what it says. Neither the Chief Justice nor any judge or any person acting as Chief Justice under Section 97 of the Constitution shall be liable to be sued in any civil court for any act done or ordered to be done by him, A, when acting within his jurisdiction and in the discharge of his judicial functions. Then B says, whether or not acting within the limits of his jurisdiction, provided that he at the time and in good faith believed himself to have the jurisdiction to do or order the act complained of, unless it is proved that he acted maliciously and without reasonable cause. So in other words, if you can show that the judge acted maliciously and without reasonable cause, he is not protected. That's what Section 29 says. So in my case, what I argued was, if a judge says something in his judgment which clearly is a lie, he knows it is a lie. I've got 13 emails to show is a lie. He hasn't explained why he said what he said in his judgment. None of his special assistants have sworn affidavits to say what happened. In fact, one of them even said, well, I was just doing what I wanted. And even that was not in an affidavit. It was a statement indirectly given to a lawyer of the AG's chambers. Then that judge is not protected by this because he was acting without reasonable cause.
Okay.
That was, yeah, but do you know what the court said? The court said no, this doesn't say that. And yet, what they should have done is this: the way you decide issues like this, you do it in two stages. First of all, you say, what is the meaning of this provision? Does it mean that there's absolute immunity? No, it doesn't mean that there's absolute immunity. You can sue a judge if you show that they acted in bad faith. Okay, fine. Once you decide that, then you go to the next step. Did this judge act in good faith or in bad faith? You can't lump them together. You have to take them step by step. They refused even to say what this means. In fact, they told me that you've got no arguable point of law. Therefore, we are going to ensure that you are a vexatious litigator. I mean, basically, they just refused to read the law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They just refused to read it. And to me, that is a problem. Because the reason why that is a problem is that it's one thing if you want to interpret a provision and you differ on it. But where it is very clear, like in this case, I mean, they even put it nicely. In A, they say, if you are acting within your jurisdiction and in discharge of the judicial functions, okay, fine. Like you sit down there, maybe you sentence somebody to 40 years when you should have given them 15 years.
Right.
You are still within your functions. The way to correct that is to go on appeal. But if you, for example, let me give an extreme example, right? Let us imagine that you are a member of the Lions Club. A judge is a member of the Lions Club. You are a member as well. And you run against each other. You beat the judge, and then you've got a case before him. And then when he's before him, he doesn't recuse himself. And then he is heard, for example, telling his assistant, oh, who does he think he is? He beat me in the club. I'm going to sentence him to 5 years. Let us imagine that happened.
Oh, wow.
Of course, you are acting in bad faith. You are not acting in pursuit of your functions. You are showing you are acting malicious. In that case, you can be sued. Okay? But they refused. They said it is not saying that. That to me is a problem because the judges at least should be able, when they read the law, and if the law is very, very clear, to say, no, this is what it means. We don't like it, but we are going to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I took this matter even to the Judicial Commission and everybody, and all of them just refused to say anything about it. Let me make a last point about this. You remember the Privy Council? They came to the Cayman Islands some time back.
Mm-hmm.
The Privy Council can't be trusted either. Okay?
How you come to that one? That's a bold statement, though. You got to say why.
And I will tell you exactly why. You see, at the time that the Privy Council was invited to the Cayman Islands, this case which I've been describing was just taking place, okay, in the court. And they knew very well the powers that be that I would take it to the Privy Council. They knew that, okay? It was at that time at the Court of Appeal level. And I'd already given an indication that, if I lose, I'll take it to the Privy Council. So what happened in the interim, Chief Justice Smelly, and this was announced, by the way, it was in the campus and the other papers.
It made its headlines here,
yeah, it made headlines, yeah. Chief Justice Smelly decided that he was going to invite the members of the Privy Council to come and sit in the Cayman Islands, which was going to be the first time that the Privy Council had ever sat outside of London, England. So, and then he went, of course, to the governor to get approval for that. Now, the real invitation was from Chief Justice Smelly. The governor is just a question of protocol because he is the head of the government here. So they came, and you know how much government spent on the Privy Council visit? I did an FOI. The government spent 141,000 CI. That's about 200,000 US to pay for these judges, basically giving them a free holiday. That worked out to about 34,000 CI per each judge and their spouse. And you see, they came with their spouses. Okay. And then they came over. After they came over, they sat and, they went back. My matter went to the Privy Council 6 months after that. 6 months after that. One of the judges who was in the Cayman Islands and enjoyed this free holiday was Lord Briggs, Briggs, Lord Briggs. He was one of those who enjoyed the free holiday in the Cayman Islands provided by Chief Justice Smelly and Governor Roper. And then when my matter got to the Privy Council, that judge was one of the three who sat on my matter. And he was one of those who said that there was no arguable point of law. Now, that case was calling into question certain things which the Chief Justice had done, and certain things which Justice Roper had done.
So are you
So did
feeling,
you expect that?
I just for the sake of letting people know this, because we're having a
Yeah.
very open conversation. In short,
Yes. Mhm.
the Privy Council is Cayman's highest court of appeal, ensuring
Yes.
that the justice in the islands is subject to the same rigorous standards as in the UK and across the Commonwealth. So with you saying that they can't be trusted and what you're getting to, I just wanted people to know exactly what the Privy Council is, for those, not that I'm saying people listening to this are dumb, but for the context in which you're saying, that's a pretty strong statement. But okay, continue.
Yes. Now, so one of the judges who enjoyed a free holiday was one of the 3 judges in the Privy Council who said that my case has no arguable point of law. And the points of law I advanced have got to do with the emails which I spoke about. They've got to do with this section itself, and they say that there's no arguable points of law. I had actually 22 grounds of appeal. So to me, I believe that the court was compromised. Why? Because they were given a free holiday. Now let me talk about this free holiday. There is a code of conduct in the UK for these Privy Council judges. And one of the clauses in that code of conduct says that judges must not accept any gifts or hospitality in circumstances which would suggest that their independence could be compromised. They are not supposed to accept that, any gift. And yet these judges of the Privy Council accepted this gift of a free holiday to come to the Cayman Islands in circumstances where in 6 months they were facing a case where their hosts, namely the Chief Justice and the governor, their hosts were the ones paying for this. Do you see? They are the ones who gave them, the same people you will be sitting in 6 months to judge whether they acted properly or not, in a case that I brought. They are the ones who now had paid for this free holiday, which was paid to you and your spouses. To me, the judges breached the UK code of conduct. And secondly, it was improper, in my view, for the governor and the Chief Justice to invite them to come over here. Then a related matter. I did an FOI, and I said, can you give me the official pictures and the official videos of the judges visiting in the Cayman Islands? And what I wanted to show, I can now say it, I wanted to show that these judges were actually wining and dining with the Chief Justice and with the governor, the very people whose case was going to come up before them in 6 months. You know what the governor's office told me? They said there are no official pictures. They said apart from one little picture which was on the governor's website, there are no official pictures and no official videos. I told them, I said, don't give me that. I've worked for 2 international organizations. I know that when something like this happens, there's actually an official photographer and videographer, because this is a historic thing. They said, no, there are no pictures either in the videos, in the governor's office, or in any other government institution. They specifically said that. So I went to the ombudsman. I said, Ombudsman, they can't tell me this because there have to be videos. So we had a back and forth, and the ombudsman made them admit that actually those pictures and videos existed. As a result, the governor's office wrote me and said, oh, sorry, these actually pictures and videos do exist. So they said, okay, we'll give you, can you ask somebody to come and pick them up? So they were picked up. And of course, they showed the governor and the judges and the Chief Justice wining and dining, which was a conflict of interest. Okay? So I just want people to understand that some of these things, the way they happen.
So
and remember Katina Angren's
what
case?
happens after this now? Because as Real Michelle says, oh my God, this story is very telling about how justice actually works. And I wonder who hosted. Well, of course, that was answered. But where does that put you? Because you now have an active case. And for what you said, others may say, oh my God, he made a blanket statement. That's damning. But now you're connecting the dots. Where do you go from here for justice? Which is what you're seeking, is what I'm getting from this conversation.
Yeah, like what's the upshot of this thing? Basically now, I am in the Court of Appeal. I'm waiting for a date of hearing. And that date of hearing is an appeal against the decision of the Judicial and Legal Service Commission to do absolutely nothing about this. Okay. Now, I can't do much about the Privy Council and how I feel they were compromised, because you see, that's something I
What's
could
the
take up,
recourse for that? Yeah.
I don't have any recourse for that. All I can do is ask for a judicial review of the decision of the Judicial and Legal Service Commission in failing to discipline this judge. It has a lot of grounds to it. It's got a lot of grounds for it. Let me give you another thing. When initially it came up, the court's administrator then, Ms. Suzanne Bothwell, she got independent legal advice, because I asked the Judicial Commission to say, I want an oral hearing. I don't want you to make a decision on the basis of written evidence. I want an oral hearing, because I want to cross-examine the assistants to the judge, and to cross-examine the judge, so that we can establish exactly why he wrote what he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
She informed me official letter. She said she got independent legal advice. I imagine it would have been a KC from somewhere. After she got that independent legal advice, it said, no, this matter, in terms of its importance, the evidence involved, there should be an oral hearing.
Mm-hmm.
The Judicial and Legal Service Commission and the Chief Justice ignored that advice, and they decided the matter without any oral hearing. So those are some of the issues I've taken to the Court of Appeal, and I've told the Court of Appeal. They said they were going to give me three hours to argue the matter. I told them, I said, no, I am not going to have a token 3 hours to argue matters of great constitutional importance. Last time I was before the Court of Appeal, they gave me 3 hours, but it was just a show. You could see that it was just, they were not taking the matter seriously. Some of the things I went through with Sabrina about that Court of Appeal matter,
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a room number to say, this is the room number we'll be using in your remote hearing. Then I told my network of supporters in Cayman, as well as some people in Bermuda who were following the case. I said, okay, just go to the website, go to courtroom number, I think it was 8, and then just click. You won't need a password. You can listen to the proceedings. When they did, after the hearing started, I started getting these emails, these messages saying, oh, but there's nothing in room 8. There's nothing in room 8. And you know what happened then? I said, what's the issue here? Actually, they had given me room 8, but they were in room 6.
Oh, you think that was deliberate?
Pardon me?
Do you feel that was deliberate or just a simple error?
Yes, I feel it was deliberate, because there are some other factors which came into that. Because initially they didn't want to make it public. I had to fight for it to become public, and then eventually, there were too many other factors to make me feel that it wasn't deliberate. I believe it was deliberate, because they really wanted it to be secret. So I will be in the Court of Appeal. I am hoping this year. I have told them that I want to argue my case over 3 days, because there are some very important issues which arise. That case, I have sued not just the Judicial Commission as a body, but I have sued also the individual judges of the commission. Okay.
Well, speaking about
so
this, for the ignorance that may be amongst us, a general question.
Yeah.
Speaking about this so publicly, as you have so candidly done for quite some time, do you feel that this may in any way implicate or, compromise your case or the decision making? I understand the amount of knowledge that you're imparting on us. And as Denver say, only people in such position know the injustice done in the courts of the Cayman Islands. Yeah. You have definitely shown a different light on the entire judicial system. But what does that also say, one, for your case? Does it in any way compromise your pending appeal, the case in general? And two, what kind of hope does this give the regular citizen who is not as learned, who's not as versed, who do not have the support or even connections, so to speak, maybe because of your tenure and where you've been around the world, connections and relationships? What kind of hope does that leave for the average citizen?
Well, first of all, I mean, when those questions are asked, I regard that to be very kind, for people to say, well, you are doing this because you are knowledgeable about the procedure and so on. But first of all, there is nothing wrong with describing a case that's going through court, right?
Uh-huh.
Under the Constitution, we've got a right to freedom of speech. But if
Really?
you not
Is it
talk
freedom?
about court,
You think it's really freedom? That's a topic in itself. I'm hearing more
In
and
itself,
more
it
that
is.
we do not have freedom of speech. And I feel like we really need, and I don't want to digress. I want you to continue, but you've
Okay.
used that, but now I'm hearing more and more. There is no freedom of speech, but go ahead, continue.
Yes, well, let me just agree that the freedom of speech is coming under severe challenge. Okay, but as usual, there's the freedom of speech is defined in the Constitution and in the laws, and then there's also the issue of how much we actually do enjoy, because it is ultimately the people in government who sometimes can control what we can say and what we can't say, because sometimes they prosecute you. You do a podcast about something of public interest and you give a fair and balanced view of it, and then they say, well, but you're harassing somebody. You see, that is a problem. Okay, we've got freedom of speech, but in relation to the courts, we should not discuss court matters in a manner that is that undermines the integrity and authority for the court. That is the thing. So it doesn't mean that we can't describe what is going on in the court.
Gotcha.
It doesn't mean otherwise, even the newspapers wouldn't be able to write anything.
Exactly.
Okay? You can write in a newspaper, for example, to say, well, okay, this matter is in court, and this is the evidence which was given on one side. On the other side, this is the evidence that was given. Or my matter is in court. This is what the judge said. This is what the judge didn't say. That is why court matters are held in public.
Yeah.
The matters are held in public. You see, even if something is in chambers, right? Like there are certain matters which they hold in chambers because there are interlocutory matters. You want an extra document to be produced. You don't have to go in open court. You can go in chambers. But technically, legally speaking, even that chambers hearing is a public hearing. And if you wanted to go in as a member of the public just to sit in, even if you are unconnected with the case, they can't stop you from doing that because that's a public hearing. Now, the only time when members of the public will not be allowed is if you make an application to the court under certain grounds to say, okay, we do not want people to come in because we want to protect victims, like, for example, in sexual offenses, or certain defined grounds. There's a matter of public security and so on. You have to make a specific application to the court to exclude people because you have to show that you come within the derogations under the Constitution. See, under the Constitution, say you've got freedom of speech and your decisions, or rather, court matters must be in open court, except in certain cases. So you have to show that in this particular case, I don't want it to be in open court. Why? Because of public morality or to protect the witnesses and so on and so forth. So in other words, the default position is that all court cases are public. People can come in and listen whether or not they are directly connected with them, whether they are in open court, that is in the open courtroom, or in chambers. They can still go there unless there is a special application made to exclude members of the public. But you see, at the end of the day, that's what we're fighting. If my case can be argued and I can be successful in certain aspects, I think it will bring a lot of things to light. There's a judge, a professor in the UK who wrote a book called Suing Judges. Okay, I bought a copy of that book and I communicated with him, and we are trying to work on something to see if after my case is over, maybe we can write something. Actually, I already have a draft of a very major article to write, which is connected with that. And I'm hoping I can write it together with him. But more than that, after my case is over, I've got a draft of a book relating to issues relating to the judiciary in the Cayman Islands. But that is that probably I'll get to that next year. This year, I'm writing a book on the statutory interpretation in the Commonwealth Caribbean. Right now, it's at about 800 pages long. I think it will wind up probably being about 700 pages. It's the biggest I've ever done. But once that is done, I want to record some of these things I've been through in the Cayman Islands, because I know a lot of other people. Every time I go on radio, every few days people call me and say, well, Mr. So-and-so, I also had a problem before such and such a judge. What do I do? And I assist people. So I know that it's not just me. There are a lot of people, Sabrina, in the Cayman Islands who either can't afford to get a lawyer, they have lost money, and they sometimes they've got good cases but just can't get a lawyer. Another thing I'm fighting in the Cayman Islands right now is the idea that, I think I mentioned this to you before, if Sabrina sues somebody else and Sabrina decides not to hire a lawyer, Sabrina wins a case,
the fees
against the fees against the person who has got a lawyer. They can only give Sabrina $30 an hour as costs if you win a case. But if you lose against the other person who hired a lawyer, and if they spend $600 an hour, you pay $600 an hour. Why should it be like that?
Yeah.
It should be equal. You see, in Canada, it's a little bit different, because what they do is they give you at least something like about 2/3 to 3/4 of what a lawyer would have earned. And so it is a little bit fair. But in the Cayman Islands, they say, no, the maximum you can get if you are not a lawyer is $30. That doesn't ensure that there's equality before the law, because what it means is that if I go before a court and I'm unrepresented, if I lose, I pay the lawyer's hourly fees. But if I win, I am paid $30. That is wrong. A judge has already given me leave to appeal that case. I've already appealed it. So that one is coming up as well. So I've got 3 appeals. I've got those 2, and then I've got the stalking one as well. Which
you're living your life just defending your own sanity. You oh my gosh.
I'm hoping that really that these things will help members of the public and will help reform. Yeah, the other thing I'm trying to, before I sign off, the other thing I want to keep pushing is there must be an inquiry in the Cayman Islands, in the judicial and legal services, a public inquiry. In the BVI, they had an inquiry of the law enforcement agencies, and some things came out of that. But in the Cayman Islands, we need an inquiry into the judicial and legal services. For example, there is a lot of selective prosecution of people right now.
Explain that. Explain the selective prosecution of people right now in the Cayman Islands. Just because sometimes I know we can get into just a discourse of discussion, but explain what that means.
Yeah. You see, whenever you prosecute people, you must prosecute people on the basis of some very clear and consistent criteria. Okay, very clear and consistent criteria. Let me talk about, you remember the case which Tim Adam had in West Bay?
Yeah, with the road and the neighbor and that went on for a while.
Yeah.
Who owned a piece of land and right of way and all that sort of stuff. Who owned
a piece of, exactly. And the person there who was harassing him basically acted, in my view, with impunity. Okay.
Meaning?
He just, despite the fact that the definitions of the roads were well defined as to what was his and what wasn't his, he was blocking the way and all those things. And to a point where when Tim Adam reported him to the police said, oh, but this is a civil matter, we can't get involved. But then one day there was a small physical altercation where like the 2 people touched each other a little bit, like one was trying to get away, you know the way like you're trying to pull out your hand and then it swings out and you end up maybe hitting somebody in the ribs or something like that. That alone, they said that Tim Adam had assaulted the other guy. So the other guy had hassled Tim Adam for a long time, and the police kept saying, this is a civil matter, we are not going to do anything about it. But when that little thing happened, they charged him and put him through trial, and he spent so much money on a lawyer. And ultimately, okay, the judge said, okay, the case is proven, but we won't record a conviction. And then later on, the judge issued an order, and that other guy ignored the order. Finally, they brought proceedings for contempt, and the judge committed that other person to jail. You know, that person never went to jail?
What do you mean?
Because if the judge committed him, I think, to a week or two jail for contempt
So
of court.
why didn't
violated
he
the
go
court
to
order.
jail when it was that's showing a disrespect of the judge's orders?
I understand that the people in Northwood said that they had no legal authority to lock him up.
What do you mean?
Now, I don't know.
Make it make sense.
Yeah, I can't make it make sense.
That
If a
was the
judge
ruling
issues
of
an
a court,
order,
right? Yeah, it's a ruling of a
that was
judge.
a ruling of the court. That was a ruling of the judge. And I understand that people in Northwood said they couldn't lock him up. Why? Because they had no legal authority.
But
So
what was the ruling of the judge? What do you mean there's no legal authority?
That's one thing I never understood.
Thanks, Jonathan, for corrected. Mr. Mike Adam, not Tim Adam. Thank you for that, Jonathan.
Oh, yes, Tim, yes.
Yeah,
Tim,
Mr. Tim.
Know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you see, I
it's
know
not
a number
Tim,
of the
it's
Adams.
Mr. Mike.
Yeah. Or not the other way around?
It is Mr. Mike Adam, not
Tim.
Right, yes.
It was Mike, not Tim. Yeah, the former minister. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so so do you see? And somehow they said, oh no, but you see, we can't lock the person up. Now, then I like my favorite case. A young lady, paralegal, in legal, her son is being charged with some little offense, small offense actually. It was a possession of a joint, and then she's the one who receives the files, right? She receives the file, and after receiving the file, she goes to her Crown Counsel. Crown Counsel, this is my son. Full disclosure, this is my son. Please, can you just warn him? Please don't prosecute him. It's going to really hurt his life. Okay. After she reports to the Crown Counsel, she held on to the file. The 6 months during which the young man should have been charged expired. And then when it became a problem, they charged her. They said that this is a breach of trust. But then, breach of trust? Okay, why didn't you charge the Crown Counsel? Because the Crown Counsel is her supervisor. She went and made full disclosure. She didn't just keep it without mentioning it to anybody. Okay? But they charged her. She had been a paralegal in legal there for 20 years, and they ruined her life. They should have charged the Crown Counsel, or they should have charged both of them. Do you see how selective they were? Yeah, very selective.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
And then you had the other case where somebody took some mal from some place and put it in his father's yard. They prosecuted him, and yet I know of cases, I can't give you the names on radio because this I got through confidential sources. There were some people under the last commissioner of police, not under the current commissioner, the last commissioner of police. These guys were getting overtime money, which they didn't work. Okay? They go out there, they write forms to say we did overtime ABC, and they were being paid. Okay? And after that, there was an investigation, an internal investigation, and somebody investigated and found that they were getting money they were not entitled to. So this person recommended that they be prosecuted. Do you know what the commissioner said? The commissioner said, okay, the case has been proven, but I think let's just make them pay back. Okay? So you are making them pay back for stealing money, but you are prosecuting people for holding a file? You see? You can't do that. Yeah. I also, for example, don't agree that they should have prosecuted Mr. McKeever Bush for two of the things that they prosecuted him for. One was this one, the sexual one. They said, well, you see, he touched some people and so on. Okay, fine. I'm not commenting on what happened, but the people who were witnesses didn't want to pursue the charge. They did not want to pursue the charge. It was being pursued by some other people. And then they had him charged. Then later on, it came out that actually there was somebody else who was pushing the matter, not the actual complainants. Why were they prosecuting him then? And then there was the other one where they were fighting for the phone. That one was just a nonsense charge. If I were the police officer, and I'm a former prosecutor, okay, from way, way back, I would have told the lady, this is a 50-50. I'm not quite sure we can charge him, but what we can do is we can give you the video. If you want to pursue a civil case against him, you can pursue it, but we can't charge you. Then the one which really makes me mad. You remember there was a policeman way back who assaulted another police officer?
Yes, I heard of that.
This was
This
was a white British guy. You know, I don't want to knock white British guys up, but some of them, my best friends, are white British guys. But he assaulted somebody. I think the officer was either Caymanian or Jamaican. And it was proven that actually he had assaulted this person. They never prosecuted him. They never disciplined him. All they did was they sent him to the BRAC. They transferred him to the BRAC. And this person now was forced to now bring a civil case at great expense in the court. And in the court, he won the case. But you know what the court said? The court said, okay, yes, he won the case, but you see the problem in the police, the disciplinary rules are not very good and they are weak, they need to be strengthened and this and that, which is total nonsense. What do you mean strengthened? You assault somebody else, even without disciplinary rules, you can charge him with assault. It's simple and straightforward. Do you see? So this is a problem. And then there's another case I'm aware of. I think I mentioned it to you last time. A lawyer stole from a Caymanian lawyer more than $100,000. A lawyer, happened to be again another white British lawyer, stole from his Caymanian partner in a law firm more than $100,000. And she reported him to the police. The police refused to charge him. They refused to charge him, and she followed up. They refused to charge him. That man now has got status and is still practicing. There is also another lawyer who falsified documents, company law documents for an American client. He was caught red-handed. He falsified the documents. He was never prosecuted, and he was never even disciplined by the bar or by the Chief Justice. So all these things keep taking place, and we need to deal with them now. In my own case, for example, the one about stalking, what has happened is that I filed a charge against this particular person who was saying that I was stalking her because she was the one stalking me initially. And you know what the police in the last couple of days said to me? They said, well, we can't charge her because this is really just a dispute about the strata. You know, it's a civil matter. I don't think that we can charge anybody. But why didn't they tell her the same thing? When she went to want to have me charged, they charged me and issued a stop order to say if I come to Cayman, I should be arrested. Why didn't they tell her that it was a strata matter? You see, the same matter can't be civil if it is me complaining, and then it is criminal when it is the other side complaining, when it is the same sides of the same coin.
You mentioned that.
That is what I'm talking about when I talk about selective thing. And these are things which can be sorted out, one, by accountability. You have a manual for prosecutions, how prosecutors are going to be guided. There must be a discussion of prosecutorial principles and applications. These must be discussed by members of the Legislative Assembly. We must look at the possibility of the appointment of some of these positions like Attorney General, Solicitor General, DPP, some judges, that they should be subject to the approval of the Legislative Assembly, the people's representative. There is a lot that needs to be done. The doctors express issue where members of the government were deliberately trying to hurt a private business. I don't know what has happened with that. I've heard some rumors that they've been compensated, but I don't know how true that is. But that is a matter in which I think somebody in government must have been fired.
You know, I stick a pin one little bit. Denver makes a very, very important point here. Denver Douglas said, I'd still like to know how one can stalk another when they're not in the same country.
well, thanks very much for that question. You know, how you stalk another when you're in the same country and you've never communicated with the other person for 7 months. I last communicated with the person in May 2025 in May. And even then, it was when we were having this back and forth about the strata fees. But once she sold her apartment and she left, she had no reason to contact me. I had no reason to contact her. 7 months. There never was any contact for 7 months. So how do you tell me that I was stalking somebody? If anything, she's the one who was talking. You see, if I come to you, Sabrina, and that I keep sending you bills which you don't owe, I send you bills which you don't owe, that is stalking, because once I tell you, okay, look, I don't owe these bills until they are ordered by the court, but you keep sending them. You are deliberately doing that. You are trying to annoy me. And that comes within the definition of harassment under Section 88A and 88B of the Penal Code, okay? But the judge decided that he didn't want to have a look at that. I mean, you know, this judge, I will complain against him to the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. You know, the latest thing that happened, I asked him, I said, okay, look, you didn't keep a record, audio, video, handwritten copy, typed. You didn't do that. And because you didn't do that, the proceedings are null and void. But then I asked him, I said, can you give me the judge's notes? Because the judges are supposed to, if they want to, they can make some short notes of pertinent points in a case. I asked him for the judge's notes. For about 2 weeks, he wasn't responding. Eventually, he responded about 2 days ago. And he gave me a 4-page summary of notes. Okay? Now, those notes, they are not signed. There is no stamp on them, nothing. So I sent it back to him. I said, you must be very incompetent. And I said that to him, okay? I said, you are very incompetent, because how can you give me something which is not authenticated? And secondly, I don't think these are judges' notes. I think you have recreated these notes. When you recreate notes, they are not judges' notes. And I also told him, I said, look, you told me you don't have a recording. I think you have the recording, because I think these notes, you have recreated them from the recording, because there's no way you could have made these notes in court, because we were going at a very fast pace. There's no way you could have made these notes, you know. So, I mean, this is just total rubbish. And these are the people who the ombudsman had found them guilty of deleting records which had been requested, and she ordered them that they should work out a policy between them and National Archives, work out a policy to ensure that things are properly recorded and they are not being deleted. And yet, that order was made early last year. It seems that they haven't made any adjustments. Again, they are just having hearings without any proper recording.
Mr.
I mean, there's a lot that needs to be.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't finish up. I want to ask a question.
There's a lot that needs to be done in the Cayman Islands. What I would ask is the politicians need to get involved with holding the judicial and legal services accountable. They are leaving that out. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I think.
Repeat that again so that can stick.
I think that the politicians, the government, they must get more involved in ensuring that the judicial and legal services in the Cayman Islands are held accountable. In other words, the judges, the DPP, Solicitor General, Attorney General, that they are held accountable. And how to do that is, one, there is need to amend certain legislation to make it more effective. That's one. And two, when reports come from these institutions to Parliament, there should be greater discussion of them. I know you did mention some time back that some of the problem is that the reports come very late. But I think they should work on the system to ensure that the reports come early and that there are real discussions regarding what is in those reports. So, that's what I think.
I know you're very learned. You're in an industry of the judiciary. I'm hearing subtly, but again, this is elevating talk, and we're all about civics, right? You mentioned something about, and we said we can have a total show on this, about freedom of speech and all of that sort of stuff. But it goes back to the 5 estates. And you know I'm going there. the third estate. And for those persons who, over time, this goes back as far as before my time, medieval. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, where it's really the powers of a society. And when you look at the third estate and you understand what it means, it's modern power structures. And the third of 5 estates is the judicial branch. How do you, with everything that you're saying, and the 5th estate is that of speech, media, that sort of stuff. Where do you put all of this in what you're seeing geopolitically, what you're personally enduring, and then the first of all of the 5 estates, and just for the sake of those who don't really understand what I'm saying, right? The first estate, and I had to pull it up because I didn't remember the order, is the executive branches, right? So these are the people who run the government day to day and enforces law. The second estate is the legislative branch, Parliament, Congress, Assembly. And these are the people who make the laws, elected representatives, so to speak, right? Then the third of 5 estates is the judiciary, the courts, the judges, the Supreme Courts. And those are the people who pretty much interprets the laws and decide if they're fair and constitutional. The fourth of 5 estates is press and media. Now, this covers your journalists, news outlets, and who watches the government and informs the public. And then you have the 5th estate. That's digital media, bloggers, influencer, citizens, journalists. And these are everyday people online who shape opinion outside traditional media. Now, if this is the pretty much the categories of power and influence in a society that goes back to medieval days and has now been over time, the concept has evolved into how we operate. What you're describing is that people need to be able to identify these things in order to know how much power they have.
Yes. And in these days, when just about anybody can go to the net on, and put on social media certain views, we need to recognize how much power we have. Now, it's a double-edged sword in that, if you misuse your freedom of speech, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. But at the end of the day, without even understanding all the legalities of it, if you are just being honest, you should be all right. Don't say something about somebody if you are not sure about it.
Right.
Okay. I love a friend of mine in Cayman who loves to say that I'll give this to you as cheaply as I got it.
Yeah.
because by that they're saying, well, look, I can't vouch for this, but I've got it. But I'll give it to you. You make of it what you will. And so it is very important for us to be able to communicate. I'll tell you one of the things that I was discussing with a friend of mine in Cayman this week. In Bermuda, they have what is called a civil justice advisory group or advocacy group, civil justice advocacy group. This is a group of people, mostly non-lawyers, who try to fight the sorts of fights like the ones I've been trying to fight. These are the guys who one time they had a number of cases which they took to the Court of Appeal, and then they wanted to take them to the Privy Council. And then they asked the Court of Appeal, can you give us a recording of, the proceedings in the Court of Appeal? The judge there, Sir Edward Zaka, who was a Jamaican distinguished lawyer and judge who was also a judge of the Court of Appeal in the Cayman some time back. May his soul rest in peace, he's now passed. But what happened was he said, he was president of the Court of Appeal in Bermuda, and he said, well, these recordings did not exist. But the litigants of this advocacy group knew that they existed, but he said they didn't exist. Then his registrar also said they didn't exist. It became such a big issue that the judge, in fact, had to hire a lawyer, and the lawyer went out there to say, well, this doesn't exist, and so on and so forth. But 7 years later, the ombudsman did an investigation, and they found out that actually these recordings existed, and that the judge and the registrar knew that they existed, and yet they both were lying to saying that these did not exist. But at that time, they wanted to charge him with obstruction of justice and other offenses. But by that time, he had become terminally ill. And eventually, the way I like to put it, he found refuge. He found refuge in his own passing. Okay, that was the end. Okay,
Oh, wow.
so and that group got in touch with me because they heard about what was happening with my case, because they were we were trying to see if we could have it published in Bermuda in terms of what we were trying to do, since one of the judges, this Justice Kawari, was from Bermuda. So to me, you see, I love to hear what Danny usually says about this. He always says that, you see, you can have all these institutions and the legislation, but in the end, it is you, the people, who will hold the public accountable.
Right. It's true. And
You
he
have to
constantly says it. He constantly says it. But I think Danny comes across so smooth and collective. And I know he wasn't feeling too good this evening. He's a little bit under the weather. I hope he's feeling better. But I'm quite sure he'll pick up a little bit from this tomorrow. Because I know he's busting at the seams, because this is right up his alley with what he's been saying, and the mere fact that we dabbled into even the estates and freedom of speech and all that sort of stuff. But I can appreciate that he's not feeling too well this evening. But for everything that we have, that he has been saying, coupled by what you've been saying, what we've been researching, what I've been sharing, it's only a matter of time that we're not any longer in the dark, and that its information is there for everyone to really educate themselves. And this is why civic engagement is so critical. We share, we have some topics that sometimes may be over our heads, but break it down, ask your questions, post your comments, and then we can break it down, which is why sometimes, Mr. Balika, I deliberately say, what you mean? Explain it. There's a reason for that, because I don't want to lose people. We can get lost because it's just not only me you're talking to. At some point in time, 20,000 people can see this eventually, 30,000 people. And it's good, which is why it's good that I put the comments as well as in real time as I can, so it all ties in. But I think eventually, for everything that we have shared here, for the knowledge that we're imparting, for the discussions, and from the different perspectives that we're sharing, a lot of people are educated and have been enlightened with, of course, what has been happening here, and wider conversation, because some of what you've referred to in regards to the Privy Council, and you put it all into context with everything, that's international.
That's international. And look at you remember the case of Katina Anglin, in which she so bravely took all the way to the Privy Council. Okay, and they gave her leave. Okay, it's very interesting that when she went to the Grand Court, she got leave, but when she applied for leave to the Court of Appeal made some very bad comments. They said, well, this case has got no merit. How can you be using government money, to pursue this case, and so on and so forth? But eventually, she applied for leave, I think, to the Privy Council itself, and then eventually the matter was heard by the Privy Council. And I watched some of it on TV, and so it was so nice to see her sitting there behind her lawyer and looking nice and elegant, But anyway, that's But you see, to me, they gave her leave, but I don't think that they planned ever to. They ever seriously thought about her winning the case. I think they just took it because they wanted to emphasize the power of the crown. That's why I think they took it. You see, that's why sometimes you will find sometimes you've got a very good case and then they don't give you leave.
Right.
And then you say, but how come they don't give me leave? But then you find another case which might be a little bit more challenging, but they give it leave. It's because they want to emphasize the power of the crown. I mean, to be fair, that case was always going to be very difficult for Katina to win. I mean, we did discuss a little bit online with her, with some of the stuff that she was doing and so on. And I think she's a big role model for Cayman, and I think she was brave to take it there. But I think it was always going to be a very difficult case to win, because one of the things which they didn't mention in that case was that even if the court had said the governor didn't use the right section, that was not going to be fatal to what the governor did, because the governor then would have just come back to use the right section, which is, I think, 135, the one which says that the UK maintains the power to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of the Cayman Islands. Right. And usually judges are very slow to give a judgment which will be academic. In other words, we can give you this, but it will be good for you for 10, 15 days, and then they will do it the right way. Okay? In fact, in some countries, they have a provision in the Interpretation Act which says that all things shall be deemed to be made under all the powers thereunto enabling, whether or not they are expressed to be made under a particular power or powers. In a nutshell, if you make a regulation under, you say, I hereby make this regulation under Regulation 7, the powers I have under Regulation 7. And actually, the powers are not in Regulation 7, but they are in Regulation 10. The court is not going to say that your regulations are invalid. It will say, no. So long as there is a power to make it under Section 10, they are valid. You just made a mistake, like you cited the wrong section, you see?
Mr.
So
Belika,
those kinds of cases are...
There's a question that was asked, is the case public? If so, what's the name of the case, if you don't mind? And that case that they're asking about, Harry Brandon, is yours.
Which case, mine?
Yours, yeah.
Oh, the one that's in the Court of Appeal. It'll be my name, Simamba, Simamba, versus Judicial and Legal Service Commission. Okay.
So maybe you can pop that in. Yeah. But we're down to 6:56. We got to go. This has been very good. He says, thank you so much.
Well, thanks very much. And I'll send you the details so that, you can maybe display it later on for anybody who wants to follow it, give you the numbers and so on.
Yeah, you can
otherwise, thanks, Sabrina.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll let you go so that you can wind up.
Oh, wow. It's been a lot to unpack. I even got a caller, and unless this caller can do it in a minute, maybe this could be a segue into tomorrow. Let's see what he has to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Share with me your email, too. They're asking for your email, Mr. Belika. There we go. Let's see if we can get this caller back, but it's just pretty much a minute. I hope we can do a minute. Oof. Let's see. Can he do it in a minute? Hi, good evening. I'm calling you back. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. We got a minute. I'm willing to call you back, but that's what happens when we got calls on WhatsApp. It disconnects. You had a comment?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Do I still have Mr. Samamar?
No, he had to disconnect because of how it works, but you got a minute. He's listening to just get it out because the show ends at 7.
Okay, fair enough. Sabrina and Mr. Samamar, Happy New Year to you both.
Thank you. Same to you.
I just want to say this, and I'll get it. It's such a very complicated subject matter. However, I agree with Danny Warren in that, what are you supposed to do if your own people are not going to hold your government accountable? However, the overarching factors here that were under discussion keeps going back to the unaccountability of the crown and colonial power structures, which we have absolutely zero ways of holding accountable. In as much that the entirety of our justice system here in the Cayman Islands is not owned and controlled by any other than the crown, not Caymanian people. And that is a salient point, even though it may be something which is uncomfortable for people to actually come forth and realize. If we in Cayman ever hope to see any kind of progress or good things start to happen, we have to grab that bull by the horns. So my point is simply this. To Mr. Dennis' point, yes, you're right, sir. However, we have no structure to hold them accountable. We are subjugated to them under the structure which we live in here in the Cayman Islands. And if we're not willing to contend with that point, first and foremost, then we're you pissing into the proverbial hurricane winds.
There we go. Call earlier next time, but I'm sorry about that. It's good to how you
Yeah,
always have you calling
good
into the
evening.
show. Thank you so much.
Bye, bye, bye.
Yes, no problem. Thank you, caller, for that. Thank you, everyone, for sticking and staying with me today. Again, another jam-packed, full, and informative show. Thank you for all your comments and your feedback. And Real Michelle says what? Yeah, there you go. So we can continue this tomorrow. I'm quite sure there's a lot more that we can unearth here as we continue to evolve, educate, and inspire each other in this space. It's 7 o'clock. Love you all lots. Until tomorrow, please be safe. Have a good night and God bless.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.